this through my blog. And you can see I have already set up a Google Hangout. Google Hangouts are awesome for flipping your classroom. Although I don't like to call it flipping, I like to call it making learning rewindable. Because I don't know if you're like I am, but sometimes I've attended a conference, gotten home, and gotten to like step 3, been really psyched about what the presenter had presented, and I get to like step 3 of what it is they presented, and then I'm like, oh darn, I can't remember what they said to do next. And then I let go of that thing I was so excited about, and I never bring it to my kids, and I was thinking how wonderful this would be to bring back to my school. So what I like to do is always record whatever it is that I'm teaching to make learning rewindable so that you can go back and you can get that information later. What I'm doing here in Google Hangouts is called a screen share, and it looks crazy psychedelic, but your audience is going to see whatever you see on the screen. Super easy to set up, and I already have set up beforehand, because you can set up beforehand each one of the sessions so that they're there and they can easily be shared out. I had a high school football coach who was also a math teacher who would use Google Hangouts as a tutoring, late night tutoring every Thursday night at 9:30 because he knew his football players could not stay after school for tutoring sessions because he was running them out on the field. And so he was able to do math tutoring with them. So that's just one way that you could use Google Hangouts. We're using it today to record building a school brand with social media. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is getting connected with Twitter, because Twitter literally saved my life and completely changed who I was as an educator. And I'm going to get into that story in just a minute about how it changed my life, because you're thinking, how can social media change somebody's life? But it did. But I want to show you first what a lot of people perceive Twitter to be. And it can be like this, but it can be so much more.
Started my camera.
Commercial, are you kidding? I hate commercials.
My little girl.
Well, after this message brought to you by Toyota, we'll start our Twitter. Here we go.
I don't care if it was. I want to tweet it all. I tweet on my body. I tweet in the snow. I want you to read me. When I don't know.
I can create a way to blog that is random and incoherent right into the bathroom wall. Why? Because normal blogging is tedious and dumb. Conceivably formed ideas. People want to have narcissistic conversations with total strangers, the everyday minutia of their lives. Why not build them a service that does that?
Twitter restricts you to only 140 word posts.
Characters. Important characters.
They're saying that Twitter is nothing but a bunch of idiots and celebrities talking about what they had for breakfast.
You know what it says?
Is it true?
They don't really show you.
What is the bandwidth? Why you always go place when we have fights? If you put the TW in front of any word, it makes it infinite. Check this out. Hey, can I get a twist? I didn't ask for Twitter.
If Twitter was as useless and as boring as they say, then somebody would have tweeted it. Your retweets could have seriously confused all of my followers.
Our followers.
You're being accused of intentionally dumbing down the internet
Hashtags.
and enabling individuals to annoy their friends without any consequences.
911.
Do they have a Twitter?
As for the charges, I would like to respond to the next public tweet. The baby just pooped. Hashtag turtle.
I'm sorry?
Yes,
I don't understand. What you just said is completely idiotic.
exactly. That's the point.
And they had to delete all that because you can only have 140 characters in a tweet. So that's the misconception about Twitter, but it can also be so much more than that. And so what I want to do first is share with you about my journey to Twitter and what it's meant to me. Because I think that when you hear my journey as an educator, that it's something you'll want to take back to your teachers to help empower and inspire them to pick it up a notch. And it's something that can also help and empower you. And then I'll talk about how you can use Twitter to help brand your school and bring more learning your way. So my journey started in 2009, 2010, when I was a librarian, high school librarian, and I started getting periodicals in that had QR codes on them. Well, I didn't know what they were, and as a librarian, you know, you research things. So I started researching what a QR code was, and then I got really angry. Because when I started researching, I saw that other educators around the world had already for 2 or 3 years been using QR codes in their classrooms for teaching. But my school district had never taught me about QR codes. I had never gotten a PD course on that. Because what I had been doing up until that point as an educator, from 1992 until 2009, I was sitting passively, waiting for somebody to bring learning to me. What a waste. What a complete waste. And I had gotten to the point in 2009 where I had almost just given up. I knew I had 8 more years till I could retire, and I was pretty much drawing a paycheck. Do you have any teachers like that? Yeah, they exist, and I was one of them. Well, I decided at that point in time, I was going to go out and find some PD on my own. If my district wasn't going to bring it to me, I wanted to know about these things because these QR code things seemed like something really cool, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn how to use them. And I happened to stumble across this amazing person, Shel Terrell. And she changed my life. Literally changed my life. Not like a Snickers bar, boy, that changed my life. But changed my professional life. She changed my personal life. Because when I connected with Shel, I came across her 30 Goals Challenge, her Teacher Reboot Camp. And this is now in its, 5th year, her reboot camp. Part of the problem with a lot of educators is they want to do something different. They love kids. They want to be the best they can, but they don't know where to start. And with Shel's 30 Goals Challenge, you don't have to start with goal 1 and work your way to goal 30. You can start anywhere you want, and you don't have to do all 30. You could do just 1 if you want. But it gives you a place to start. And where I started with Shel and with the 30 Goals Challenge was connecting on Twitter with EdChat. Shel Terrell, Librarian Man, who's Jerry Blumengarten, and Tom Whitby started EdChat back in 2009, 2010. It just happened to be a coincidence that that was the year I started my journey of searching for something better so I could be something better. I started connecting on EdChat, which is now the largest educational Twitter chat in the entire world. And one thing that people don't tell you when you start becoming a connected educator is how overwhelming it is and how inadequate you begin to feel. Because you start connecting with rock star educators all across the world that are doing mind-blowingly amazing things in their schools, from principals like Andrew Maxey down in Tuscaloosa at Rock Quarry Middle School, who's doing amazing things with the hashtag at his school and with his students, and is able to attract superstar teachers to his school because of what he's doing as a principal, as an administrator. He can attract those type of teachers to his school. But I started to feel super inadequate because I realized I wasn't doing those things. And my self-esteem by that time, as an educator and personally, I didn't think I was capable of doing those things those other people were doing. But the way Twitter saved my life is while I was on EdChat, I connected with several really awesome people like Doug Johnson and Shel Terrell, Tom Whitby, several other superstar people. And one night, feeling completely overwhelmed and inadequate as an educator, and just knowing that I couldn't be these superstars I was learning from, I sat down and wrote an email. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I wrote emails to several people that I had met on Twitter, superstar people. And I said, you know, this is really great, and I'm glad you're doing this, but I can't do this. I'm not these superstar people. I can't do these amazing things in my school because I'm not this amazing person. I'm just me. And I don't have it in me to do these amazing things. I think I'm just going to skate the last 8 years until I can retire. Now, I went to sleep that night thinking nobody's going to respond back to me because I'm a nobody. And they're amazing people. And certainly they're not going to have time for me. When I woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning, I just decided to look at my email just to see. Every single one of those people I had emailed me back. And they said, we've got your back. You can do this. And you don't have to be Shannon Miller or Gwyneth Jones or Tiffany Whitehead or any of these other superstars. You just have to be the best you can be every day. Start with where you are now. Take something you've learned and try it. And we're always going to be here for you. And it changed my life. Because I realized I didn't have to skate into retirement and hurt kids for another 8 years. That I could do something different and I could bring the best the world had to offer back to the kids where I was working because I was connecting with the best and learning from the best. And because of those connections, I was able to meet Shelterell in person. I was able to meet all these amazing people and do some amazing things. I started Ed Camp Atlanta with friends that I had met on Twitter that I had never met face-to-face before. I started the Teacher Librarian Chat, which is a national chat for teacher librarians. I would have never thought I was capable of doing something or collaborating with people all across the world because I wasn't that person. But I learned I could be that person with the support of all these other amazing educators across the world. Matter of fact, at Christmas this past year, I drove 2,000 miles during Christmas break, and I stayed every other night or every 2 or 3 nights with a different person I had met on Twitter. I got to stay with Jerry Blumengarten and his wife, Gail, down in Florida, and met their children and their grandchildren. I got to meet so many amazing people that I had never met face-to-face in person before up until that time. And so it is this wonderful community, professional learning network where you can learn. And you've heard 2 brains are better than 1. What about 100 brains? What about 1,000 brains that are all wanting to do the same thing you do, have already done these things, and are willing to share their experiences so that you can go back to your school and say, hey, I learned about this great thing that this other principal did in their school. I'd like to try it in our school. Because it's hard to come up with all the ideas on your own. You don't have to. Connect with these people and find out what they're doing. And so that's what we're going to do. So I want to show you next. This is Flipgrid. And so I sent out on Flipgrid to my PLN, please share why leveraging the power of social media is important to you as an educator. And I was specifically wanting to hear from administrators, since you guys are administrators. So Dr. Neil Gupta and Eric Scheringer, I want to share with you what they say about Twitter.
Hi, my name is Neil Gupta. I'm a district administrator for a school district in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. Leveraging the power of social media has been a game changer for educational leaders. Social media has transformed my leadership ability to think outside the box by interacting with other leaders that are doing things that I didn't even know that existed. In this age of constant change at the state and federal levels, it's difficult to stay updated to gather best practices. Instead of waiting for the yearly meeting to happen, I'm able to connect with ed leaders from across the United States to share ideas and uplift one another. I'm a huge fan of Twitter and ed chats to sharpen my sword and to get inspired. I've also recently connected on Voxer,
where I speak with other leaders from across the state of Ohio and across the United States. I even participated in a book study this year. It's amazing to think of the possibilities that extend beyond the older methods of communication to now use social media to learn, to get inspired, and really to ultimately to help our students grow.
All right, and then Eric Scheringer.
Social media is so important to me as an educator because it really is 24/7 constant flow of information. I can learn anywhere from anyone at any point in time. It's just being able to follow your specific personalized interests, your passions, and I look at this, the formation of your own personal learning network through social media. You can get access to resources, ideas, strategies, track conferences, get feedback, and get support from a global network of educators. I see social media as a human-generated search engine, that it's always there for you whenever you need it. You could use it as little or as much as you want. And best of all, it is completely free. If you want to be empowered and take ownership over your learning and really push yourself outside your comfort zone, social media is probably the most liberating space for you.
And y'all, I can't help but thinking of an article I read a few months ago about a principal in Georgia who killed herself after a board meeting. Her school was the lowest performing school. I can't help but think that if she had been a connected educator and had these other educators who had her back and were helping to support her and give her encouragement even in a hard time, that she wouldn't have gone back to her school office and killed herself. That's how important getting these connections and not feeling completely alone. Being an administrator can be an overwhelmingly straining, emotional job, and we can't be in it alone. We have to connect with others so that we can keep a good balance. So let's look at some Twitter basics that you'll need to know to get started. Because if you notice what Eric and Neil both said is it's a 24/7 learning place you can learn. But what I like to look at it is it's a 24/7 professional development conference. That's what I get out of it, is it's a professional development conference. So whether it's this professional development conference where we all kind of know each other, or if it's something like the Alabama Educational Technology Conference or the COSIN that you went to, that some of you got to go to, it's still a professional development conference. So we need to approach it from that point of view that we are educators attending a professional development conference. So the first thing we need to talk about is our profile picture. So if we were to walk into an in-person professional development conference and we didn't have a profile picture, if we were still an egg, if we hadn't hatched ourselves yet, then that would be like you walking into a conference with a mask on. So there you are at that professional development conference with a mask over your face. Well, we're educators. We're used to weird, right? We might be like, oh, I wonder what's up with that. But okay. Then the next thing is your username. So if you're at a conference and they haven't made the name badge for you, but they have the little place for you to write your name in, well, your name matters because you're at a professional development conference. If you're at a professional development conference with other educators, are you going to write in there, Go Bama or Hot Mama or something like that? No. What are you going to write at a professional development conference? Your name, right? That's what you should be using on Twitter, is your name or some form of it. I mean, if your name's Sally Jones, you might have to do some alternate of Sally Jones, right? Or Bob Jones. I actually know a teacher whose Twitter name is @FelonWhisperer. Literally, that is her Twitter name. Now, she does work at an alternative school, but still, does that reflect well on her school? Would you want her to be at your conference or at your school? Would you want to know her professionally? Probably not, because of that name. So not only now have you walked into the professional development conference with a mask over your face, but you are now labeled yourself as Felon Whisperer. Well, we accept weird as educators, but I might not want you to sit with me. I might be like, yeah, there's a chair over there. I don't want you to sit with me. Then your profile description is super important as well. Here we see Holly Sutherland and Jennifer Hogan, who are two Alabama educators. And then another Alabama educator. Well, if you don't have a profile, that's kind of like sitting in the conference. I know Meg very well, and I've told her to hatch herself. And anyway, so you have a mask over your face. You're the felon whisperer, and when anybody asks you, "Well, what grade do you teach? What school are you at?" you won't tell them anything. You just sit there. Weird, right? We need to know who you are. If you're a principal, let us know. If you teach third grade, let us know. If you're an assistant principal, let us know. If you work for the district, let us know what it is and what you do. Otherwise, you're just sitting there at the conference with a mask on your face, felon whisperer on your chest, and you won't talk to anybody. Then I know some educators who protect their tweets. Y'all, that's even more weird, because that's like you have gone to a professional development conference, but you've locked yourself in a closet and you're talking to yourself. If your tweets are protected, you're talking to yourself. Nobody's hearing you at that conference. Nobody can see you at that conference, except when you unprotect your tweets and you shout something out with your mask on and your felon whisper and you jump back into the closet again. So think of it in that way. All right, so we're going to talk about Twitter chats, because Twitter chats is where the real conversation takes place. So before I show you this little video, I want to explain to you a little bit about hashtags and Twitter chats and where you can find those, because this is where the real learning takes place. So you know we're using the hashtag Limestone LA. So what that hashtag does is it enables you to follow one stream of thought. So I use TweetDeck when I do Twitter chats so that I can follow one stream of thought, because on Twitter I follow over 3,000 people, or close to 3,000 people. Well, if I were to try to follow what 3,000 people are saying, all 3,000 talking about 3,000 different things, it would make no sense. And that's what Twitter looks like unless you learn how to narrow it down with a hashtag. So narrowing down with a hashtag helps you there. And so right here, I can see this is Limestone LA. And so I'm only going to see what people are talking about during this conference here. So if I wanted to see a different conference, I would look at that hashtag. So it narrows down the stream or the thought of conversation. You have links to all this on the Moodle page, but I want to show you this here too. Educational hashtags. These are chats, educational chats that are going on all over the world. So do we have any assistant principals in here right now? All right, assistant principals. Right here, you can see we have AP chat, hashtag AP chat, which is a assistant principals chat. This is where you can connect with other assistant principals all over the world to discuss issues associated with assistant principals. They meet every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. And so you just get on, use that hashtag AP chat, and you can connect with other assistant principals. For school principals, it's CP chat, which is Connected Principals Chat. You can see here, here's one for first grade teachers. First chat. First grade teachers, every Sunday at 7 p.m. So every day of the week, there's a different type of hashtag chat going on that you can use. One hashtag that I love is the SS chat, which is the social studies chat. They are a dynamic group of social studies teachers. And just as an example of what this group did, do you remember when Osama bin Laden was killed? It was like a Friday late afternoon that we found out he was killed. Not enough time to really talk about it with our students at school. So on Twitter over that weekend, using 140 characters and the hashtag SS chat, social studies teachers from all over the world got together and created lesson plans, from introducing who Osama bin Laden was all the way down to final assessments, videos, websites, and other things to do with kids, so that social studies teachers all over the world were able to walk into their classroom on Monday morning and have complete lessons to teach about Osama bin Laden and what the United States was doing and why we wanted him killed. And so that's the power of what a chat can do. There's math chats, there's English chats, there's art chats, there's coach chats. There's every chat you could possibly think of. The one I would encourage you to connect with is the AL Ed Chat, which is the Alabama Ed Chat. It meets every Monday at 9 p.m. Central Time. It's run by Holly Sutherland and Jennifer Hogan. They always have guest moderators on as well. But what Hoover School Districts, and there's several other school districts who do this throughout the country, if you participate in a chat, you get professional development credit for that, because they understand the power of Twitter and the power of learning to push their educators forward and how important it is to connect those. Another question I'm also asked a lot is, well, who do I follow? It's really not about the follow. It's not about who to follow or who to friend on Facebook. Not Facebook, who to follow on Twitter. It's about the hashtag. But if you want some people to start with, then there is a PLN Superstar page that gives you some ideas of who to follow, who the superstars are in these. So you have math chat, English chat, there's a music chat, there's a chat for school psychologists and counselors, social studies, science, special education, coaches. There's chats and people to follow for every one of these. But what I do is I get involved in a chat, and if somebody's contributing and I really like what they're saying and I'm connecting with them and I'm responding to them and they're responding back to me and I'm learning from them, I want to add that person to my PLN because they're sharing and I'm learning and we're growing together. And that's what it's all about, is connecting, sharing, learning, and growing together. So when you get involved in a Twitter chat, it can happen very, very fast. And if you're not used to it, it can be a bit overwhelming. I like to compare it to, you've never jumped roped in your life before and then you're entered into a double Dutch contest, right? And so you kind of just jump in and hope for the best. So during a Twitter chat, you're going to have lots of tweets coming in super, super fast, faster than you can read them. The point of a Twitter chat is not to read every single tweet and click on every single link. The point is to contribute and to learn and to connect with others and build those relationships with other educators. So you jump in where you can, you have the conversation where you can. But I love this little video of Lucy and the Chocolate Factory because I like to think about the chocolates as tweets during a Twitter chat. So watch this little clip and think about the chocolates as the tweets in a Twitter chat. And I'm going to fast forward this just a little bit.
I induce past tense. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired. Listen, who never knows? So this is easy. Yeah, we can handle this, okay?
Yeah, and so the Twitter chat's starting and you're thinking, yeah, there's nothing to this. I can handle it.
Listen, that's all I think.
Oh, God.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed up!
Oh, goodness. I love that. And you do feel like that at first when you participate in a Twitter chat. You're like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can keep up with this. One thing that Holly Sutherland and Jennifer Hogan did at Hoover High School to encourage their teachers to participate is, number one, they offered professional development credit. But number two, they would hold Twitter parties at the school when Alabama Ed Chat was taking place. So at 9 o'clock at night on a Monday night, they'd all sit in the library and have the big screen TV with the computer up with their little tweet stream up for the Alabama Ed Chat. And they would help their teachers learn how to use that Twitter chat. And so, like, is this not going to let me? It's not going to let me zoom in. So, and that way they'd bring in food and drinks, and it'd be more of a fun, relaxed party atmosphere. But we're also going to learn how to tweet. And the reason they did that and went to those extremes is because they knew that if they could get their teachers to connect, what happened to me could happen to them. You'd go from being a teacher who was disconnected, disengaged, and ready to just collect a check and slide into retirement to a teacher who's suddenly reinvigorated, engaged, and bringing back the best practices into their classroom. And that's what we want to do, is connect our teachers and make sure that they're doing what's best for the kids in our school and bringing back the best the world has to offer to our students. Andrew Maxey was a principal at Rock Quarry Middle School down in, what's that little college town with the little elephant? You know, that horrible little team. I think, Mr. Garris, you know what that team is. What is it? Where is that? Tuscaloosa? Is that? What? That little college down there, right? So, can you tell I'm War Eagle? So, anyway, Andrew Maxey uses a hashtag for his school, Rock Quarry Middle School. What is that? RQMS JAGS is what he used. And I got to meet Andrew Maxey at ISTE last year, and he brought to ISTE, you know, the little ribbons that you collect at conferences that you can add to your name badge. Have you ever seen those little ribbons? So he made ribbons with his school's hashtag on it and brought them up to ISTE with him and was passing those out. And so it kind of became a big collector's item. Hey, did you get Andrew Maxey's hashtag? And also Jennifer Hogan and Holly Sutherland also started a hashtag there at Hoover as well. And what they both did with their hashtags, and what other schools have done with their hashtags across the nation, is build a school brand. It's built pride in the school. Their teachers start tweeting out about what's happening in the school, the fun stuff that's happening. And then what you start seeing is kids start taking pictures of the cool things that they're learning, the experiments they're doing in class, the play that they're doing, the story that they wrote. They start tweeting with the hashtag. And you've got this sense of community and pride in the school that is built. It really helped us at Hoover when we got snowed in. Do you remember at the high school we got snowed in with 700 kids at Hoover High School? Because we had established that hashtag as our brand, our parents weren't worried. They knew they could get information about their kids anytime they wanted by using that hashtag to ask questions. And teachers and administrators were always monitoring Twitter to see what's happening. And not only that, but our teachers and administrators were constantly taking pictures of what the kids were doing. This is where the kids are going to be sleeping. We separated the boys and girls. The girls are sleeping over here. The boys will be sleeping over here. The CNP staff has made dinner. This is what we're having for dinner, taking pictures of it. Here's pictures of your kids eating dinner and being well taken care of. We've got blankets and pillows for them. And so constantly sending out information so that the parents weren't worried through the night and the next day what was happening with their kids who were snowed in to the school. It's a great community relation tool. And Andrew Maxey, because he uses his, he's been able to attract the best teachers to his school. He's been able to make teachers who go on national speaking tours, who have written books, who are superstar teachers, to come and teach at his school with him because of who he is, his connections, and that he's willing to let his teachers step forward and be innovative. During a Twitter chat, a normal Twitter chats use the question one, answer one type of format. So when you start a Twitter chat, most of them will start out with a moderator saying, please introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you teach. That's pretty easy. You can jump in with a tweet like that, right? I'm Nikki. I work in Limestone County. I work with 3rd and 4th graders. That's pretty easy to tweet out. The important thing to remember is to always use that hashtag when you tweet. Otherwise, nobody's going to see your tweet. Now, I've got about 6,000 followers. Still, nobody's going to see what I tweet if I don't use a hashtag or a certain person's name, because unless you're staring at Twitter right at that moment I tweet something, you're not going to see it. It's gone. Like a puff of air, it's gone. So you have to use that hashtag so that you're in that stream of conversation. The next thing a moderator will probably say is, question 1's coming up. They're going to warn you. Question 1's about to come on, so go ahead and get ready for question 1. A lot of times, Twitter chats will let you vote on what the topic's going to be for that hour, or they'll notify you ahead of time what the topic's going to be. And a lot of times now, I've seen good Twitter chat moderators let you know what the questions are going to be ahead of time. That way, if you have something you want to share, like a blog or a website or another resource, you'll have that available and ready to share when that question comes up. So it's a great learning opportunity to get tons of ideas within just 1 hour. Then they'll come on and they'll say something like Q1 and they'll ask the question. And so if you're wanting to add to the conversation, you want to add something to that question or respond to that question, you would simply use A1. But you always have to make sure you use that hashtag, otherwise nobody's going to see it. Everyone using that hashtag will be able to see that. So that's my Twitter lesson. I would definitely say there is nothing that compares to Twitter. It's where I learn everything that I know is through Twitter, and it's where I've made all my wonderful friendships. It is through Twitter. And what changed me from being an educator who wasn't serving the school I worked for or serving the kids I worked for and sliding into retirement and just collecting a paycheck to doing something more with my life. Facebook is also another place you can go. It's probably where you're going to get your parents, most of your parents and most of your community. It's a great place for advertising what's happening in your school, celebrating successes, but it's not a place where a conversation takes place like Twitter, and it's not a place where you build relationships like I found on Twitter. And you know, with your kids, relationship building is key to student success. It's key to your success too, so that you keep progressing and growing as an educator and don't get stagnated and stuck in a place like I was. It's a place to get your teachers to connect and grow together as well. Pinterest is another great resource. When I told my teachers we were going to have a professional development on Pinterest and they were going to get PD credit, they were like, "What? Are you kidding me? I love Pinterest. I use it for everything," right? So, and the guys in here are going, "What? I don't use Pinterest." But guys, you can use Pinterest. You think it's not for guys, but anything that can be pinned, anything that's on the web can be pinned. So if you're into sports or you're into car repair or anything else, if it's on the internet, you can pin it and you can use it. So just a couple of ways you can use it and why I like it. I love Pinterest. I use it as a bookmarking site, which is much better than a kitty cat. I like it too because it's visual. I need those visual cues. I'm one of those people who I just need a visual cue. Unlike other bookmarking sites like Digo, where it's just words, I might not really, the title of something might not really click with me, but if I see that picture, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that such and such. That's why I marked it, because it's about that. Ways to use it: lesson planning. My daughter is a 2nd grade teacher in Kansas. She uses she uses Pinterest all the time for finding great lesson plans. You can just type in 2nd grade and up pops a whole slew of things that you can do for 2nd grade. I use it for student resources. I've made a student resource Pinterest board, and so my kids know to just go to that Pinterest board and they can find the resources they need. But one of my favorite things to do with Pinterest is to create a digital scrapbook for your school. This is an awesome thing to celebrate the wonderful things that are happening. So if the news has a great story about what's going on, like the magazine article that Dr. Sisk is about to do an interview for this afternoon, Wouldn't that be great to pin the electronic copy of that article onto that Pinterest board for your school district? That'd be awesome. Well, what if the news doesn't cover something that happened at your school that you want to celebrate? That's where we've got to get on it with blogging. Get our teachers to blog. Principals should have a blog. We should be celebrating the awesome things that are happening in our school. And then once it's on an electronic resource like a blog, pin that blog and have it up there on your digital scrapbook. And then have this on your school's webpage. And then your parents, the community members, legislators, people from all over the world can click on that and see the wonderful things that are happening in your school. So it's a way to celebrate digitally what's happening in your school. Instagram. This is where your kids are, or where they kind of are, but they're starting to migrate away from it. Instagram's another great place that you can celebrate the awesome things that are happening at your school. And that's the thing about social media. You can celebrate the cool stuff that's happening in your school. Matter of fact, because we've been tweeting with this Limestone LA hashtag, and I've been tweeting out to my 6,000 something followers, I started getting contacts last night from my PLN from all over the world saying, a leadership academy, that sounds so cool. How can I start doing this in my school district? I started getting those calls from my PLN last night. And it's because we've been tweeting about all the fun we were having here yesterday, and we're tweeting again today. So I started getting calls in saying, how can we bring this to our school district? And if we don't celebrate the cool things that are happening in our school, how will anybody know? We're the media now, guys. The media is not kind to educators, are they? And so if we want a different story to be known, we have to be the ones to tell that story. And to get it to the most people, we need to tell it through social media. We need to celebrate those teachers and their lessons and the cool things our kids are doing and our teachers are doing in our school. Snapchat. You're thinking, oh, not Snapchat. Guys, Snapchat's where the kids are. You really want to get to them? Go to Snapchat. I know foreign language teachers who use Snapchat. They'll send out a Snapchat to their kids. Their kids have to send a response back using the foreign language. That's just one way they can use it. Have you heard of Vine? Vine is kind of like Instagram, a little short, tiny video. I had an IB English teacher who used Vine. His kids had to create projects in the 6 seconds on Vine to summarize the story they were reading, or to summarize a story from Shakespeare, or to summarize such and such. They had to use Vine to create that. That Yik Yak that Dr. Sisk was talking about the other day, we defeated that thing at Hoover. That thing came around, it didn't last 3 days at Hoover, not because we shut it down, because that's the wrong thing to do with social media. We want our kids to make mistakes with social media when they're in the safety of our school, so that we can use that as a teaching opportunity, so that they don't get out into the real world and make a mistake that's going to haunt them for the rest of their life. How many times have you read a news story where a teacher gets fired for using social media inappropriately? Too many. Did anybody ever teach them how to use it appropriately? Are we serving our kids well if we don't teach them how to use social media? If we ban social media and then send them out into the world and they use it inappropriately, that could follow them and haunt them for the rest of their life, depending on what they've done. So we've got to use that as teaching lessons. We never had trouble with that. With the Yik Yak app, you know, it's a bullying app. People say negative things because it's anonymous, but it's within a certain radius, which means you can actually control it at your school. So what we did over at Hoover, all of our teachers, our administrators, our tech kids, the school kids we trusted, got onto Yik Yak, and all we did was send out positive messages about our school. All we did is send out positive messages about other students, about teachers, and we blew it up with nothing but positive messages, to the point that the kids who were being ugly didn't want to be on Yik Yak anymore because it wasn't serving their purpose of hurting others. You don't have to ban things. Use it as a way of connecting and teaching. When we saw students who weren't using Twitter appropriately or other social media, we didn't ban Twitter or cell phones or anything else. We would bring those kids in and we'd talk to them about real life. And okay, I know this seems funny now, but What's this going to look like when an employer, when you're trying to get a job, when you're trying to get a college scholarship? What is this going to look like? And we used it as a learning opportunity. We didn't punish the kids. We didn't ban things. We used it as a learning opportunity because that's what we're there for. Aren't we there to help kids learn how to be competent adults and how to use things responsibly once they get away from us in a safe environment? So we want to do that. Snapchat added a new cool thing called stories that you can actually use. So where you can use those Snapchats to create a story. And so even George Couros was like, I didn't know why I should use Snapchat, but now I do with the stories. So here's a little Snapchat story that was created about a school. And we have to meet kids where they are. Use what they're using.
Now,
Use it to your
visit
advantage.
schools all across the country. And I want to give you a tour of one of the most technologically advanced, awesome schools that I've ever been to, Lowry Primary School. So when they were designing this school, what they did that was unique is they actually put the kids' input into the design. Check it out. So as soon as you walk in, opens up to this massive room. So what they did in designing this is they had the library, the center of the classroom. I don't know if you can see it. Also have a slide.
A slide in there. The kids helped develop the school.
Depending on the weather outside, related to the temperature.
So anyway, we're not going to watch the whole entire Snapchat stories, but I love the stories feature. And so start thinking about how could you use a stories to help advertise cool things about your school and get it out to your kids? Or how could the kids use Snapchat in a positive way in the school? Watch, she's going to go down the slide there.
How much water we consume. The rules that the principal told me is the slide never closes.
Isn't that awesome? Like the Ron Clark Academy has a slide too.
School, they have these little reading cubbies.
So what I want you to do is think about how can you harness the power of social media for positive things in your school? Of course, it can be used for negative things. But how can you harness it for positive things? How can you use it as a learning tool? Just because a kid does something wrong, think about in a classroom. Good classroom management. If you have one or two kids misbehaving, do you punish the entire class? Is that good practice? It's not, is it, to punish the entire class? So if you have a few kids who are misusing cell phones, for instance, should you ban cell phones? No. That makes no sense. You call those kids in, you talk to them, use it as a learning experience, and turn it around to your advantage. If they were making videos of a teacher and they shouldn't have been recording that teacher, have them they obviously like making videos, have them make a PSA video. And then maybe have them research how to make a green screen and then teach other kids how to make videos as well, but for educational purposes. Wouldn't that be better than cutting everybody off from a cell phone? It'd be a lesson, it'd be a learning experience, and everybody in the school would have benefited from it instead of suffered from it. So feel free to contact me. I'm always on Twitter. I have my Twitter hooked up to send me a text message if you use my Twitter name, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day at the conference. And I think it's lunchtime, isn't it? Or time to head back? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm going to stop the Google